Let's get dangerous.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo!
Thunder! 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 Thundercats! Ho! It's a Gundam!
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman!
Welcome to Toon Travel. Hey, cartooners, you're listening to Toon Travel. I'm Paul Siebert.
And I'm Faith Casto.
And each episode, I'm a giant squirrel, she's a plant monster, we fight crime. Actually, we don't fight crime. We travel through time using our time machine, the TOON, that's Temporal Observation and Orbital Navigation Machine, to observe and catalog the cartoons and cartoon-adjacent media of the past. And Faith, I was just wondering, how was your spring break?
It was pretty good. I didn't do a whole lot. I did get to go see my boyfriend a few times, and we went to his grandparents' house.
Oh, that sounds nice. My family got to go to Orlando, Florida.
Wow.
And we went to the water park at Universal Studios. It's called Volcano Bay. That was a lot of fun, and we had some very nice meals. Everything was great, aside from the fact that my original flight was canceled, so I had to rebook and fly out at like 5 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
We had a good time, but now is the part of the show that I am now going to call the Temporal Detour, where we talk about what non-cartoon and cartoon-adjacent media we've been ingesting. And I would like to recommend a movie called See How They Run from 2022. I watched it on my trip back from Florida. I should note I was not driving. It is a comedy mystery starring Sam Rockwell and Saoirse Ronan, and it's about a murder that occurs right after the wrap party for an Agatha Christie play's 100th showing. And the more you know about this particular play, which is called The Mousetrap, and Agatha Christie herself, the funnier it is. But this one does not spoil The Mousetrap. So and it very much stands on its own. If you're a fan of comedy mysteries like the 80s Clue movie or the Knives Out movies, I'd strongly recommend it. It's got a real nice meta tone to it. For instance, there's a scene where we have a writer complaining about flashbacks and they immediately jump into a flashback, and that's the kind of humor it has. So give it a look.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting.
I see. And do you have any media you would like to recommend to our listeners?
Recently I have watched First Daughter, which is I believe 2008 or 2009 film. It follows the president's daughter. It's not like a real president that we've had. It's like a fictional movie, of course, going through college and just trying to be like a normal, I guess, college student. And she ends up falling for this guy who is actually supposed to be like her bodyguard, but like she felt kind of betrayed about that. And then I actually watched the Dead Poets Society over break. I haven't finished it yet, but it's really good.
I've heard nothing but great things about it. So, Faith, we're going to be talking about Courage the Cowardly Dog, but before we do that, I was just wondering, were there any other of the Cartoon Network originals, or cartoons as they were called, that you remember watching from back in the day?
I watched Chowder, and I don't know if it's considered Cartoon Network, but I also watched Tom and Jerry as a kid.
Well, that was long before the Cartoon Network, but I think they had an original show called Tom and Jerry Tales.
Oh, yeah.
In the early 2000s.
That one too.
But I don't think it was considered a Cartoon Network original.
Maybe not.
But, I watched quite a few of them. I remember really enjoying Dexter's Laboratory and the Powerpuff Girls. And there was a show that I really liked that only ran for 2 seasons, and not a lot of people remember it, called Time Squad.
It seems familiar. I don't know if I've watched it.
It was about a space cowboy, a boy genius, and a fussy robot, and they would go back in time whenever history was going wrong and try to fix it. So, like in the first episode, they have to help Eli Whitney invent the cotton gin because he accidentally built a bunch of killer robots. And there's another episode where they have to convince Beethoven to stick to music because he was considering a career as a professional wrestler.
Oh, wow.
It was a very funny show. But let's talk a little bit about Courage the Cowardly Dog. This ran kind of late in the evening originally on the Cartoon Fridays block. So it was sort of their bridge between the Cartoon Network originals and what would eventually become Adult Swim. You mentioned it was kind of on the scary side?
A lot of my friends used to be scared of it as kids, I guess, because of some of the aspects of the shows and, like, what would be considered the villains, but I loved it.
Oh, yes. Well, it was a fun show, but it got pretty dark sometimes. There were a few villains that were very scary. But before we talk more about Courage the Cowardly Dog, let's talk about this week's defunct sponsor, Pepsi Blue.
Time and time Tell people you think about me. Time and time again, you'll think about you. Hey! Crank it up! Pepsi Blue, a fusion of berries with a splash of cola. Pepsi Blue, it's a blue thing.
Inspired by the success of Mountain Dew Code Red, this shocking blueberry cola hybrid was introduced in 2002, and it was a mix of cola and berry taste. What specific berry? Well, they didn't actually tell us. It wasn't blueberry. It wasn't blue raspberry. The soda had a color that was not very appetizing. It was comparable to toilet water after you put Tidy Bowl in it. And it was harshly carbonated. They discontinued the cola in North America in 2004, but apparently you can still find it in the Philippines, so someone liked it.
That's interesting.
Now, I also grabbed a newspaper back when we were in 2002, when the show aired, and on January 1st, U.S. President George W. Bush signed into law the No Child Left Behind Act that was designed to provide financial assistance to schools exhibiting academic improvement and increasing accountability in public schools. However, it was criticized for schools being encouraged to focus their resources on teaching the test as opposed to offering a complete education. I remember a lot of people being upset about this because a lot of schools were dropping things like music and art just to focus on drilling in these test questions. On January 9th, the 29th Annual American Music Awards were held at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, California. U2 won Artist of the Year, Lenny Kravitz won Favorite Male Pop Rock Artist, and Janet Jackson won Favorite Female Pop Rock Artist. And Michael Jackson was honored with a special Artist of the Century Award. So, big night for the Jackson family. And the number one movie in America was Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Rings. Peter Jackson's adaptation of the popular series by J.R.R. Tolkien would win 4 Academy Awards and inspire 2 sequels, as well as the Hobbit series of prequels, making it one of the most important and successful fantasy franchises of the 2000s.
Yeah, it seemed to be pretty popular.
Have you ever seen the Lords of the Rings movies?
I actually have watched a little bit of the first one because of I believe a theater class I had, or maybe it was a film class in high school.
I got to see them, all 3 of them, at the Keith Albee back when it was a full-time movie theater and not just this special occasion building. It was awesome.
That's cool.
All right, so let's talk about Courage the Cowardly Dog. In 1995, John R. Dilworth made a short animated film called The Chicken from Outer Space, which was the first ever Courage the Cowardly Dog cartoon. The short ran for 7 minutes and 48 seconds and was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Animated Short in 1996, losing to the Wallace and Gromit short, A Close Save. So, pretty big name year for animated shorts at the Oscars. And in February 18th, 1996, the short premiered on Cartoon Network's What a Cartoon Show, an anthology of animated shorts that served as the launching pad for many of Cartoon Network's original programs, including Dexter's Laboratory, Johnny Bravo, Cow and Chicken, and the Powerpuff Girls. Chicken from Outer Space was also included as a special feature on the VHS release of Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghosts.
Huh.
Courage the Cowardly Dog was greenlit for a television series which premiered on November 12, 1999 as part of the Cartoon Friday block, which aired from 7:30 p.m. until 11 p.m. on Friday nights. The show ran for a total of 52 episodes, with most of the episodes consisting of 2 segments. There were only 2 half-hour episodes, The Towers of Dr. Zalost, which we watched, and The Mask. To promote the show, Cartoon Network used to have animated music videos called Groovies. The one for Courage the Cowardly Dog featured They Might Be Giants, so kind of a big-name act to get to promote the show. In 2000, John R. Dilworth won an Annie Award for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Production Design in an animated television production for the episode A Night at Cat's Hotel. In 2001, the series won a Golden Reels Award for Best Sound Editing in a television animated series. While only airing for 4 seasons, the show enjoyed a long life as reruns on Cartoon Network, where the show aired repeatedly in syndication until 2015. In 2018, the complete series released on DVD as part of the Cartoon Network Hall of Fame series, and in 2022, the show returned to television as part of Adult Swim's Checkered Past block. In 2014, Cartoon Network looked into bringing back the show and produced a 7-minute CGI short called The Fog of Courage. Sadly, the show was not picked up. You can find the short on YouTube. There was also a prequel series proposed in 2018 called Before Courage that never made it to the pilot stage. An animatic for a pilot called Goblins of Litter can be found on YouTube as well. It was actually uploaded by Dilworth himself.
Interesting.
In September 2021, a direct-to-video movie called Straight Outta Nowhere, Scooby-Doo Meets Courage the Cowardly Dog was released. This crossover movie was directed by Cecilia Abranovich and Michael F. Ryan. It is, to date, the only piece of Courage media that Dilworth was not involved in. I watched the movie. I think it's very funny, but it is sort of unfortunate that the show's creator was not involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
Today, viewers without the assistance of a time machine can watch the complete series on Tubi. And interesting thing about the show's voice actors, for Eustace and Muriel, they actually hired seniors to voice the couple.
Huh.
Marty Grabstein stars as Courage the Cowardly Dog. In addition to voice acting, Grabstein is a character actor who has made appearances on Law & Order and Law & Order SVU. Lionel Wilson was the voice of Eustace. And Wilson is a veteran voice actor whose career crossed many decades and performs on shows like Tom Terrific, Winky Dink and You, and Ralph Maskey's The Mighty Heroes. He was forced to retire from the show due to health concerns, and in the 3rd season, Arthur Anderson took over as the new voice of Eustace. Thea White was the voice of Muriel. Interestingly enough, Muriel White was not a professional voice actress. She was a librarian who just sort of tried out for the show, and she got the part.
That's cute.
Paul Schaffler was the voice of this episode's villain, Dr. Zalost. Schaffler voiced numerous characters on the show, including such villains as Katz, the Quack, and the Snowman. He also appeared as Captain Hook in a 2000 Broadway version of Peter Pan. And this I found curious. The rat in this episode was actually voiced by Arnold Stang, a veteran voice actor of the old guard Hanna-Barbera series, most famous as the voice of Top Cat.
Wow.
So they got in this big-name legend of animation voice actor, and he's just doing rat sounds.
Yeah.
So we watched Courage the Cowardly Dog, Season 2, Episode 13, The Tower of Dr. Zalost, which first aired on January 11, 2000, which was written and directed by Courage creator John R. Dilworth.
We interrupt this program to bring you Courage the Cowardly Dog Show, starring Courage the Cowardly Dog! Abandoned as a pup, he was found by Muriel, who lives in the middle of nowhere with her husband, Eustace Bay. But creepy stuff happens in nowhere. It's up to Courage to save his new home.
Stupid dog! You made me look bad!
Our episode begins in the town of Nowhere, which is being bombarded by cannonballs as a sinister green figure watches on with a sadistic grin. He sees several citizens get hit by the cannonballs, and they all turn green and depressed. Among the victims we see are a little girl jumping rope, a pizzeria chef, a girl with a parachute in her backpack, which I don't know why she had that, but you never can be too safe in a place like nowhere.
Not at all.
We also see a chicken get struck, and it becomes too depressed to cross the road. We cut to the mayor's office, where Dr. Zalost is introducing himself as the greatest unhappy scientist who ever lived. He demands ransom of $33.33 billion, or else he will use the city as research and make all the citizens very unhappy. We catch our first glimpse at the massive tower as it's being pulled upon by giant crab-like legs. The mayor blows off Dr. Zalost and laughs at him because the citizens are already happy because we just raised their taxes. We cut to see a rat firing cannons at the city as Zalost is literally kicked out of the mayor's office. He hits a telephone pole, and Zalost angrily devours revenge. We get our first real view of the tower, which is animated using a combination of CGI and traditional 2D animation. It approaches the city and starts firing cannonballs everywhere. The mayor declares, "We've been bamboozled," which is interesting because Zalost literally did exactly what he said he was going to do.
Yeah.
And he and his assistant agreed to pay the ransom. We see more citizens getting affected by the cannonballs. We finally go back to see the home of our heroes. Muriel is making a dish called Happy Plums, which can make anything happy. Important plot point. She instructs Courage to put some sour cream on the 3 cups of plums. Meanwhile, Eustace is especially cranky because the newspaper is late. Courage has trouble evenly distributing the sour cream and winds up eating all the plums. Thankfully, Muriel has made plenty more. Eustace turns on the news, and we see the announcer from the opening credits of the show reporting on the tower attacking nowhere. He is under the effects of the cannonball too, and too depressed to finish the report. As someone who's worked in news, I've had days like this.
Mm-hmm.
Eustace now has seen enough and vows to go into town to get his newspaper. We cut to see our villain, Dr. Zalost, in bed eating ice cream and feeling quite depressed. The rat is busy counting the money. Dr. Zalost laments, "What good is all the money in the world if it doesn't bring happiness? And if I'm not happy, nobody deserves to be happy." He asks the rat for a hug to calm him down. The rat gives a half-hearted hug, which Zalost calls out and angrily demands and angrily sends him away. The mayor makes a video call demanding that the citizens be returned to normal. Zalost refuses because the money didn't make him happy. He then offers the rat another chance to give him a hug. We cut to Eustace at the office of the Nowhere News, and he's upset because there is apparently no news today. He calls the staff lazy monkeys and starts to speed off in his truck before he almost hits the tower. He furiously starts to blow on his horn to demand that they get that pile of junk out of the way. Zalost sees Eustace and browbeats his boss for missing one of the citizens. He mistakes Eustace for a happy person and declares that if there's one happy person, there must be more than one of them. He orders the rat to go get them. We cut back to the house where Muriel is watching Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster, a classic Godzilla movie. So Muriel has great taste. Eustace comes in, and the whole house starts to shake. Courage sees the tower approaching, and he responds by doing this wild take where he has a bunch of eye moles, and you'll just have to take my word that it's very funny. This isn't a gag that's easy to describe in an audio or only medium.
Mm-hmm.
Eustace gets hit by an unhappy cannonball, but is unaffected. His built-in orneriness makes him immune to emotions. Courage rushes in to try and save Muriel, but arrives just a second too late. She gets hit by a cannonball and is depressed. Eustace gets hit by another cannonball and angrily vows to get his mallet. Courage dodges several cannonballs. He's doing this like parkour acrobatics, and he fakes one out using a fake nose and glasses. He takes Muriel inside and hides her inside of the door of a kitchen cabinet before he hides in a sink. Zalost declares victory and asks the rat to give him a hug again, and the rat just lets out this exhausted sigh, which I'm sure Arnold Stang was paid richly for.
Mm-hmm.
Eustace decides that it's time to have some happy plums, and Courage tries to cheer up Muriel by making funny faces. They have a little bit of subtle character work where Eustace says she likes you best and asks Courage to feed her some of the happy plums, but she's too depressed to eat. Courage sits down in meditation position and imagines himself breaking into the tower and finding an antidote. He runs over to Eustace and does some charades to try and convince him to help. Eustace tells Courage to keep him out of his plans. They cut to the rat answering the doorbell, and Eustace is disguised as a pizza delivery boy. The rat reluctantly pays, and Eustace clicks his heels together and says, "This is the easiest $20 I've ever made." Courage springs out of the pizza box just in time to hear Celeste admonish the rat because he didn't order a pizza. Courage walks up a flight of stairs in time to see a giant machine dropping cannonballs into a cauldron. The rat arrives to try and stop Courage. Our hero grabs a cannonball to defend himself, which causes a domino effect and a bunch of them spill out. One of the unhappy cannonballs hits the rat, which causes him to turn into a terrifying giant monster rat, which has a little tattoo on his arm, which I thought was a cute touch.
Mm-hmm.
The monster rat jumps high into the air, lunging at Courage. Courage remembers that he has Muriel's plums with him. He flings one of them at the rat monster's mouth, causing it to somehow to turn into a baby rat that's crying. Courage just sort of shrugs off this weirdness. This is probably like the second or third weirdest thing Courage has seen this week.
For sure.
Courage runs up the flight of stairs only to find Dr. Celeste waiting for him. He gets tied up and placed in front of a cannon. Celeste gives him a chance to turn Muriel back to normal if he can win a game of hangman before the cannon goes off. Courage is comedically bad at hangman and has to buy a vowel. He initially buys an A, which there are 0, and he buys an O, and there are 2 I's in the world. And they end up squabbling because Courage basically gets double charged for the O's. Courage unties himself to pay for the vowels before tying himself back up. So, if anything, Courage is a fair player.
Mm-hmm.
Courage successfully guesses that the word is boom, and Celeste accuses him of cheating. Celeste fires a volley of unhappy cannonballs, at which Courage dodges. Courage jumps through a hole in the ceiling, but Celeste catches him and dangles him over the cauldron. Courage remembers he has the plums. He throws them at Celeste, which causes the cup to bounce off his head and fall into the cauldron. The cauldron turns pink and starts shooting pink cannonballs everywhere, and suddenly the tower starts to crumble. We see Eustace uncharacteristically worried about Muriel, though he's also worried about his dinner, but he seems genuinely concerned. The tower destructs, and we start seeing the cannonballs flying everywhere. Eustace sees them, and he starts to freak out, thinking it's the end of the world. We see the cannonballs hitting the citizens of nowhere, and they're happy again, except for the chicken that wanders off into traffic, and we hear a car crashing into it, and there's a bit of slapstick.
Mm-hmm.
Little bit of a dark joke, but not unheard of for this series. Courage emerges from the wreckage of the tower, recovering a pink cannonball and saving the baby rat. Celeste has recovered a cannonball of his own and has chased Courage inside the house. Courage uses the pink cannonball to save Muriel. Eustace emerges from the closet with a mallet, and he's actually ready to fight Celeste. Celeste immediately throws a cannonball at Courage and accidentally hits Eustace, who crumbles into dust in a very Looney Tunes way. So the one time Eustace decided to make himself useful, it completely backfires.
Yep.
Celeste kicks the rat away, and we spot Courage and Muriel hiding under a table. Celeste spies a plate of happy plums under the table, and as luck would have it, plums are his favorite. He eats the plums, and his complexion turns back to normal. He's finally happy and thankful to Muriel. He hugs the baby rat, who calms down. And Muriel says, isn't this the coziest picture you ever did see? And our show ends with Courage having a goofy grin, and his mouth is just full of happy plums.
Mm-hmm.
So, Faith, what did you think of this episode?
I honestly think this is one of the most memorable episodes from when I watched it as a kid. I remember watching it, I think it was 2019, right when I had just finished online school for the summer, because we were on lockdown for COVID, so I just did online school. and I think this was one of my favorite episodes from the series.
Yeah, this is a favorite of mine. For whatever reason, it seemed like whenever I turned on Cartoon Network, this was the episode of Courage that would be rerunning.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I caught it live during the original run on Cartoon Fridays, which was quite a block of entertainment. If you're probably too young to remember it, but it was
I don't know if I ever did get to see Cartoon Fridays.
yeah. Well, it was very much a late '90s, early 2000s thing. So yeah, it was probably before your time. But let's start a new segment on the show. Often in the '80s and early '90s, they used to tack on morals at the end of shows. But Filmation loved to do this, explaining what you learned during the cartoon. So, Faith, what moral did we learn today from this episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog?
What did we learn? I reckon happy plums can make everyone happy.
Well, my thing is, I think, and maybe this just struck me as a person who deals with mental illness. If you're depressed, don't make it other people's problem.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good moral.
This is an interesting episode just because, from a wellness standpoint, this is the first and only time I can think of a villain in a show depicted as his motivation stems from simply being depressed.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I've only seen with this, I guess, show and also this episode.
Yeah, it's a fascinating piece. I wouldn't call it a sensitive depiction, but it's certainly an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
So, are there any other cartoons that which you would like to check out for this show?
I honestly enjoyed like Powerpuff Girls when I was a kid as well. That was something that I would always put on when I was getting ready to go to bed.
Powerpuff Girls would be a good one. I would also like to check out Dexter's Lab.
Mhm.
Maybe Time Squad if we can ever find it.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh,
What was the other one? I don't know if it was specifically on Cartoon Network, but I always remember, um, there was this, like, monster home. It wasn't like a movie, but it was like a show.
Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
I think so.
That was a good one, and
Yeah, that one.
that gave Lauren Faust her start before she did My Little Pony Friendship is Magic.
Huh.
Now, unfortunately, Cartoon Network is not what it used to be. Now, there was this period in the late '90s and early 2000s where it was really this happening, inspired network where a lot of independent animators were getting their start and a lot of great shows were made. And then it just sort of hit this like skid, and it was very slow in the mid 2000s, and there was even a period where they were experimenting with live action TV.
Huh.
Yeah, they had a show hosted by Andrew WK called Build, Destroy, Build, or something like that. It was a total ripoff of Junkyard Wars. But it did come back in the 2010s, very strong. You had all these shows like Adventure Time and Regular Show and Steven Universe.
Yep, I remember all of those ones as well.
And then it just sort of hit the skids again. And some people have blamed streaming. Some people have blamed David Zaslav, the head of Warner Brothers Discovery, for not seeing value in the brand. But unfortunately, it's not what it used to be. But I'm holding out hope that Cartoon Network can become strong again.
Yeah, I know, especially like nowadays, there aren't a lot of good cartoons anymore that just kind of have the same vibe as they used to.
I know there's still plenty of talented animators out there. There's a lot of exciting stuff going on independently with shows like The Incredible Digital Circus and Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotel. But,
Yeah, I have seen those ones, but I don't know.
all right. Well, folks, remember to like and subscribe the show if you are following this on YouTube. Also, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Pocket Casts if you're on Android devices. And Faith, now it's time to cue up the game show music. We're going to be playing a game called Two Cowardly Dogs.
Ooh.
Both Courage and Scooby-Doo have faced countless frightening foes. Using their names alone, you tell me whether each villain menaced Courage or Scooby-Doo.
All right, let's see if I know my cowardly dogs.
All right, first one off there. Charlie the Robot.
Courage.
Appearing in the Scooby-Doo Where Are You episode, Foul Play in Funland. The big twist in this episode is Charlie is not a crook in a costume. He's an actual malfunctioning robot who the gang catch and they fix.
I must have not seen that one.
All right, number 2, Velvet Vic.
Velvet Vic. Scooby-Doo.
Ooh, you're off to a rough start. Velvet Vic is the ghost of a 50s-era lounge singer who Eustace is a fan of that is trapped inside of Record. He appeared in the Courage the Cowardly Dog episode, Record Deal. So you're off to a little bit of a rough start, but you can still win this. Number 3, Al Capone.
Al Capone. Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Al Capone is the ghost of a Depression-era gangster who haunted a TV station in the Pup Named Scooby-Doo episode, For Letter or Worse. In true Scooby-Doo fashion, he turned out to be a disgruntled TV star / stage magician in a disguise. So, 0 for 3 so far, but you can still pick up some bragging rights. Number 4, Professor Mean.
Professor Mean? I feel like that's a Courage one.
Correct.
Yes.
Professor Mean is a mad scientist who appears in the Courage the Cowardly Dog episode, Curtain of Cruelty. He developed a energy curtain weapon that makes people mean, and Eustace's inborn crankiness made him immune to it, which sounds kind of like the episode we just watched. All right. And our final villain, Night Fright. Is he a Courage or a Scooby villain?
Scooby?
Correct. A demonic figure with a grudge against Vincent Van Gogh, Night Fright appeared in the Scooby-Doo Mystery Inc. episode of the same name. He turned out to be a disgruntled screenwriter in disguise. Well, that's about all the time we have for this episode. But you know what? We're getting near the end of the semester, and it's sort of been a tradition on this show to each semester do a Disney afternoon show.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we're going to do DuckTales, go back to right near the beginning of that block. And if we're lucky, we might be able to get a special guest.
Ooh.
So stay tuned, travelers.
See you next time. Bye.
All right.